Good morning. Welcome to the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding. I'm your host, Harvey Freed. Alongside of me, the best co-host, Becky Alley.
What is going on, everyone? It's an exciting morning around here. I'm happy to be here, for sure.
Fantastic. And we're excited to bring you 1 hour, of course, the Hardcore Mortgage and Real Estate Show. In our 23rd season, we got a fantastic show set up for you today. Darren Roberts from Jim Schaefer and Associates. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How's everyone doing this morning?
Fantastic.
I forgot. It was a long night.
It was a long night.
Maureen Mitchell. How you doing, Maureen from Parks Title? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We know you guys, we're always excited as mortgage people to be at a title company. Usually it means there's something good going down that day. Of course, Darren doesn't mind being there either.
Right.
All right, we're going to break down all that great information for you. If you're a first-time homeowner, there's so much to know about home ownership. And Becky, I'm starting to feel like 50% of the families out there and buyers, and Darren, you might get along with me, are really wanting to know all this, and then they're empowered and they're making these great offers. And the other 50% sort of struggling. They need to get a little bit more knowledge behind them.
That's actually really true. I actually did a course not that long ago to kind of make sure we're always trying to be ahead of the game, right? Understand how we can help people. And the generations right now between 25 and 35, they are well educated, they have master's degrees, they have bachelor degrees, but if you ask them how to manage their finances, they have no idea. And a lot of that is that home ownership concept where they just don't know what's happening. And there's people that we talk to that are buying their houses for the second time and they have no idea what they even went through the first time. So it's almost like when they're repeat buyers, they are first time home buyers all over again because that education piece was not there. And I feel like, we're the next generation where we can identify that, and we take a lot of time to teach these, our buyers, our clients, what it's like to have a personal home buying experience, because it's not cookie cutter, and it's very important that we take the time to handhold to make sure they understand it, because the last thing I ever want is someone to deal with me, work with me, and they have no idea what we just went through.
We consider ourselves very good teammates, and it's about that team, Darren, and I think you guys use that concept too. You come in to see Darren Roberts, you're going to get some great information, and then Darren sets you up with Becky Alley, and all of a sudden you got this team working for you. I think that's what's needed today, and it's going to be needed come this spring in 2023.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Becky nailed it. Education is probably the biggest thing that we need to educate new buyers, second-time home buyers, third-time home buyers even, simply because real estate is constantly changing. And what you need is a team behind you to go ahead and teach you or hold your hand along the way. I mean, I was an educator for 5 years prior to real estate, and I thrive on teaching each and every step to go ahead and get you to that closing table at Parks Titler.
Right. Well, actually, I had the pleasure. Darren and I just hosted. It's called. They do the Sip and Sell over at Jim Schaefer. They also do buyer seminars, and there's rotation. And I have one coming up for the buyer seminar, which we'll announce that location here shortly. But with the Sip and Sell, it was basically mainly towards sellers, but people do need to buy and sell sometimes. And to see Darren work the room as far as how he engages everyone, we're not selling. We're actually just there to help. And the fact that he is an educator at heart, it kind of comes through very naturally to him when he's having these conversations with everyone. And it's receptive because people are selling their house and they don't know what they're doing. But it starts with that conversation. And some of the people that were there are not looking to do anything for a year. And guess what? We don't care, because you can't start those conversations soon enough, because when you fall in love with a house and then you want to apply after the fact and you find out you can't qualify, that's the problem. But if we can talk to you a year ahead of time, then you're setting yourself up for success.
Yes, absolutely. And, I got to give gratitude to those that do come to those Sip and Sells, because they are taking a step in the direction to get educated. And like Becky said, not everybody was ready right then and there, but they all walked away with some knowledge, something new that they didn't know before. And really, that's what I truly love to do, is just educate and give them an idea of what maybe selling or purchasing a home is like, and then and letting them walk away with some of that knowledge.
It comes from your passion a little bit, and I think people need to become passionate about what they're about to do. We're car enthusiasts here in Michigan and Detroit here, of course, the home motor city, of course. We build them here, so we better be passionate about them. And then you've got some other things like people's hobbies and stuff. I always urge families, first-time buyers, get passionate about this, because it's fun and exciting. There really is nothing better than owning that house and then building the wealth and everything that comes with home ownership.
No, it is always and forever will be the American dream to own your own property, your own piece of something. And I feel like it's ingrained to us in children as a way, but I feel like there was a lot of delay. There was a lot of people that were afraid to buy their own homes for quite some time. And that's why, like that millennial, the 25 to 35, they're finally at that point where that's 45 million that are now going to be very much entering into the buyer's pool. And that's why I think we'll get into it, but we're going to see a very heavy seller's market again, because ultimately we are still in a seller's market, but there is this really cool moment. So I'm talking to the first-time home buyers, repeat buyers. It is a really, really good opportunity right now where you can sell, you can get top dollar, but as a buyer, you really can take advantage of less competition right now. The interest rates have pulled back, but you're also seeing a flood of buyers come in because they're getting those rent letters. They're getting those increased letters, and people are identifying that, listen, if I am renting, I am not buying, and that means that I'm always going to be investing in someone else's future, and people are realizing that they need to take advantage of what these opportunities are right now, and if they're not, you're definitely going to be seeing a lot of competition and over asking for sure in the next couple months.
All right, 248-539-9797. This is a 1 hour packed show of real estate information, buying and selling homes. Darren Roberts answered that question. We got some really deep talk, too. We brought, of course, Maureen in from Parks Title to talk a little bit about title insurance today.
I'm pumped about that because there's a lot of people that don't understand. So I was happy to have, I was like, yes, Maureen, get her in here.
I hand wrote it here, Maureen. You are on page 4 of this, and we're going to get into that also. So come and join us, 248-539-9797. 31% of first-time home buyers. Boy, 31% of the sales during November were first-time home buyers. That's what I meant to say. That's up 3 points. That's a 3-point increase. So this is why that education piece becomes even more and more important. And we always say it's it's more enjoyable experience when you make better decisions based on your knowledge, based on your needs, wants, and your financial position. These are really, I wrote it down last night. I go, that sounded good. But the truth is, you got to grab that couple. You got to grab that individual, whoever's buying the house, and put that real plan together. You want to dive in on that? No, I won't leave you with that.
It's okay. Actually, I have a question I'm going to bring Maureen in on this one.
Okay.
So one of the few questions that I get constantly on when someone is reviewing closing costs, what is title insurance and what is the difference between the lender's title, because they're like, was that a lender fee? No, it's not. But that's a huge question I get repeatedly day in, day out is what is the difference of the lender's title insurance and why does a buyer have to pay it versus an owner's policy? What's the point of both of them at the same time?
Okay.
That's loaded.
First.
Yeah, it's
Owner's
loaded.
Policy is what's going to ensure your ownership in the property, right? So it's your biggest purchase, right?
Mm-hmm.
At that time, right? And so you're basically, the seller normally pays for owner's title insurance. It is ensuring the land itself, that you have clear title to the land. Nobody has any claims on it, right? The lender's policy is ensuring first lien position for that lender. So they're saying there's no other mortgages on the property. There's nothing else that could create a first lien on the property.
Yes.
So that's the difference.
Okay.
You're insuring you're paying for your lender to have insurance.
So that also protects someone. So let's just say you're buying a house from somebody and they went and got wall side windows and they just didn't pay for the bill. And when and so that means that company could ultimately put a lien on my house while I'm in the position of buying homes, right? So that is something that would protect you from something that could come up later on down the line.
Right. I mean, like if you take out a mortgage for windows, right, it gets recorded against the property and that's a lien. So if they don't record the mortgage, there still could be, factors that come into play like that don't get recorded. But in most cases, you're going to see those things get recorded.
Yeah. So what you're hearing, everyone, is, when you're seeing your closing costs, it's not just fees that are just there just to be there. They are intentional. They are there to protect you because our job is to set you up with a team of professionals that are going to set you up for success, not just now in this moment, but also 5 years down the road, because Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, some of these things get delayed. Some of this stuff that was recorded sometimes it doesn't show up right away. And when we see that title work, working with people like Parks Title that are going to identify a situation, but then also honor these commitments and do their research to, if a problem does arise or if there's a death in the family, there's all these things and layers that go on behind the scenes that there's a reason for these things and they're there to protect you. They're not just, I heard someone, well, that's just a junk fee. No, it's not, because
it's a real policy. Yeah.
The last thing that you want is to have ownership in a property and then you go to refinance and you find out there was some phantom lien against the property that wasn't properly recorded and you didn't have the documentation to protect yourself.
Yeah, we searched the history of the property.
And it happens because we see it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And again, there were so many refinance transactions over the last 25 years. Again, when you talk about getting in the business in the late 80s there, when people talk about the higher interest rates, 10, 12%, and then they got to refinance when they came down to 8, and then the recorded information might have got messed up. So a lot of times you have to go back and clear up some title and make sure that you're presenting free and clear title.
And a lot of times we have to dissect it.
And
we
you got some homework to do on these things.
Yeah.
It's not so cut and dry.
We said we're going to deep dive on it. We got more information on title insurance, buyers and sellers. That's right, owners. If you're selling your house, you've got some costs. We'll go over the basic costs when we come back. 248-539-9797. Keep it here. Alrighty. The music says we're back on the air 9:14 if you're just joining us. It's our 23rd year of the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate Business Show, January 20th, 2023. I'm Harvey Freed. She's Becky Yale. We got a great cast for you. Darren Roberts, of course, Jim Schaefer and Associates, Maureen over there, Maureen Mitchell at Parks Title. And we're going to take your calls at 248-539-9797 up till 10 o'clock. Then Pat will be joining us with sports. We are brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding, powered by Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, equal housing lender, NMLS 2289. Did all the homework there, Beck. We got it in.
Yeah, all the compliance people we covered. And I'm really excited. Okay, so I had the pleasure of hanging out with some really cool people last night. But then when you can bleed that into the following morning and being in here with Darren and Maureen, two amazing people in the real estate industry, and to have them both on the air right now, I really want people to call in with their questions, 248-539-9797, because you're about to get a masterclass on what is happening in the market, customer service, right? How you're treating people is everything. I feel like we take it beyond. It's no longer, it was like, oh, I got 5-star reviews. I don't care about your 5-star reviews. We're talking about world-class service now. You have to be able to give everyone what they need, but also make them understand, because it's not enough to just answer your phone sometimes, which you're winning in life if you're answering your phone, because believe it or not, people don't answer their phone, which is crazy. But it's not just answering your phone. It's being present on those phone calls. It's, when someone's answering the phone, they're, blah, 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 and you're like, I'm busy, right? You get that vibe that they're busy. You're not really feel like you're heard. And it's important that when you're working with real estate agents like Darren, he will slow it down for you. I don't care what he's doing. He will answer his phone every single solitary time. And you can tell he is very present in the moment, in the conversation. And that's actually as simple as a character trait you think it is. It's very rare anymore.
It's tedious work, that's for sure.
It is rare.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is, again, going back to that little bit of that hand-holding, I am that agent that'll text you happy inspection day or happy appraisal day, just to remind them the steps of buying a home. If you're selling a home, happy open house day. It's just that friendly reminder to let them know that, yes, I'm thinking of you, but I also think it's really valuable information that you need to remember. So I thrive on that.
Injecting a lot of positivity with all of that.
Yeah, it's just a positive thing.
It's a moment. We are a part of these milestone moments, whether it's their first house or their 10th house. You never forget when you're buying a piece of real estate, because it is more than not the biggest asset, biggest piece of something that people are going to have in their lifetime. And you can't take that for granted. And I'm glad that you brought up the happy inspection day, because our girl Maureen can, attest to this too. But why is it so important? Because I'm bringing this up because I know we're getting into the spring market, and I feel like it's going to come really soon, and people are going to get crazy, and they're going to be doing these desperate things to get their offers accepted. Why is it important to never waive the private home inspection?
I have never once had one of my clients waive their home inspection simply because anything can be hidden, right? I mean, you got sewer lines, mold in the attic, galvanized plumbing that is rotting from the inside out. Those are some of the major details that I like to take a look at, and that's why I'll never waive an inspection.
Well, Maureen, this morning, that sort of is interesting without throwing too much information out there. Sort of interesting because a lot of families have done home improvements over the years.
Especially last couple of years.
Last couple of years, got all this equity. And hard to find the contractor. So you finally get a call back from a contractor. He's referred by another family member. You're trying to do the right thing, but you might not have vetted that person properly. And maybe that came up in your case too, Maureen. And I don't want to talk too much about that specifically, but you never know what was done incorrectly. And sure enough, you sort of had that happen.
Well, he just said galvanized plumbing, and that's one of the things that is going to affect me.
Ew, sore spot.
Well, and I did have a home inspection, but we didn't look at it from the purpose of what's coming in the future, right? Am I going to do a home improvement? Am I going to change things? It is going to affect me now, knowing now that I have galvanized plumbing.
Okay, so you know when you're doing that bathroom or kitchen job,
Yes, so it goes back to it's not just right now, but it is setting up for the future. And there is a difference between a professional inspector coming out versus your dad or your uncle. No, and nothing wrong with dads or uncles that are, want to be that second eye, or that third eye even, to just be there to make sure everyone's doing the right things. But hiring a professional, which all they do, is key in those moments to identify those kind of situations.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, too, is that inspections, right? Or when you're pulling permits, for example, and you are buying or selling, if those permits don't pass and you're trying to buy or sell this house, they will be open permits at the county or at the city level, the city level. And that could affect who's buying the house and how they're selling the house, because if these permits were not properly closed out and the agent and everyone's doing their due diligence and they come up, that might be an issue when you're trying to sell your house.
Well, and it's not our job to make life difficult for everybody else. We don't want to do that. I mean, but we want to make sure both our seller and our buyers are covered.
Protected.
It's protection.
We
Yeah.
see that
And
with
that's why we look.
And it's like whatever the situation is. I had once when I was finishing a walkout basement and I wasn't happy with the city inspectors. And lo and behold, I tried to do some work on my own. And sure enough, they came over and they said, no, you got to pull a permit for these items and stuff. And that really can protect the future homeowners and yourself. Sometimes we overlook it because there's a cost involved, but it's very important probably to have the city come out. Those professional inspectors from the city are going to come out. They're going to issue the stamp of approval. And more importantly, then your contractor who's licensed and insured is getting the job done the right way.
Well, the
Right.
problem was that these contractors weren't pulling permits, and then it's coming out in the dirty laundry a little bit now.
Ugh.
You know, and so it's like you have to, the purpose is to always make sure that you are being set up for success. And like Maureen was saying, it's not to be a whistleblower, but if I'm buying a house, I want someone to point out all the things that are wrong with it. Okay. Anyone can come in a home and Vanna White it to death and be like,
Right.
oh, look at these beautiful drapes, right? I want to know what is going on underneath with the mechanicals that is going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars to replace, like, roots in a sewer drain. I mean, those are big ticket items. And, and the reason why I bring it up is first time home buyers, especially, we can get in the programs too, but it's not ever the payment, it's the funds for close. So when you are, working and saving and getting funds from other people in your family to buy this house and you're a first timer and you didn't have the proper people around you to protecting you, and then you own this house and now there's problems with the plumbing, there's problems with the pipes and things like that, those are going to be another $10,000 that you didn't have in the first place. So do the due diligence, and it does matter over and over again as we preach this day in and day out, week in and week out. It matters who you work with, and it matters who's around you. And we have two of the best in the industry in the studio with us today.
And Darren Roberts, there's no doubt about it. On that purchase agreement, it could be this pass-fail inspection. So that's contingent, right? The contingency, the big C words out there. We're going to go contingency. We'll talk concessions, contingencies. Small, easy contingency. Hey, let me do my due diligence. I'm going to go out to the house. I have 7 to 10 days. Give me some professional. Give me some time to get some professionals out there. Again, you said the sewer line inspection. Love that one. I started talking about this like 20 years ago. People thought I was weird.
Yeah, nobody was doing it.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
what?
It's a newer
Agreed.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. Like I said, I will never waive an inspection. It can be info only, but that sewer line can be nail biting, especially in Oakland County,
Yeah.
Royal Oak, with oak trees everywhere. So it's one of those things. Yeah, we can do a pass fail inspection. But I am, before I even get to that inspection, my goal is to educate the buyer as best as I can. My number one rule is go to the basement first. If there's a basement, we're checking that foundation. Don't need you to fall in love with the kitchen. Don't need you to fall in love with the bathroom, because if your foundation isn't there, we walk right on out.
Exactly.
Yes.
I like that.
That's so
Yeah.
true.
You don't need to do the. I used to tell families, look, if you're buying up north or somewhere area where there's well and septic, if the septic field's failed and no one wants to come up with the $18,000, you don't need to do a home inspection.
Exactly.
You need that. That's a great point. I haven't talked about that one in a while, Becky. Is getting the proper team together, because then they set up these proper steps for your home, so your successful home ownership. It's so key that you take these little steps, and you think they're not a big deal, but so often, Beck, I've had it before where clients went out there and they got the home inspection done, and I said, well, what about the well and the septic? And sure enough, well, they're going to come in 5 days, Harvey. Well, that failed. And that was where the expense was. That was $18,000 to put a new septic field. And so again, proper team, proper contingencies written up, and allowing sellers. You're not here to squash a deal. We're here to make deals happen. And sellers appreciate that because they're going to be buying another house.
Yeah, I actually had a buyer, septic well, and he was hesitant to get the water tested. I'm like, why? Like, it's literally $150, maybe,
Right.
maybe. I go, but don't you want to know if you have arsenic in your water or rust? I go, that's a big thing.
Right.
And, and he was, I'm like, what are you afraid of? And he was like, well, it's going to be a big thing to fix. I go, well, don't you want to know it now before it's, because he fell in love with the house. And I was like, okay, it has good bones, it has all the things, but you need to make sure the water is good. You need to make sure that the well and the septic are far enough away, because you don't want to have the other things happening when that's too close. And he passed, but I had to almost like nudge him because his agent wasn't. And I was concerned for that. He was a first time home buyer, in love with the house. And like with like the idea of it was romanticizing about it, but there's all that nooks. You got to get in the mud sometimes, and I'll get in the mud with you, and and everyone in this room will get in the mud, but I can
like
also
that.
go to climb the mountains too. But you got to be with people that are going to get in the mud.
And
I like
you
that.
got to look, if you're a seller in Macomb County and you have a well and septic, you have got to have an inspection.
Yep.
It's got to pass.
Get it done.
But some cities don't require it, and that's where you get caught up. Is when it's the option, well, it's $150. Okay, well, what is $150 on peace of mind? What is the price of peace of mind? Even
A lot. You gotta pay a little bit of money to get that peace of mind. All right, so here's what happened on that story.
Yep.
Sure enough, a guy about 4 years ago called me up and said, Harvey, I need a mortgage to pay off my land contract. I said, fantastic. Oh boy. So I said, how long have you been living in the house? I get all the information. And sure enough, he's an FHA borrower. It's going to need a well and septic. And I said to him, hey, you bought this on land contract. When you guys bought that and put all that money down, did you do the test? He said, no. Well, sure enough, FHA requires well and septic. The well report came back with the highest level of arsenic I think the reporter ever said he's ever seen. And I reached back out to the guy, and sure enough, we were able to now put the proper systems into the house. You can fix that. You can filter the water with the proper filtration systems. And that was done 4 years after his family was drinking the water. So again, folks, if you're buying a house, this is the real deal. I know there's some great folks out. Your folks might have great information, uncles, cousins. But Darren Roberts, he's got all the answers. And
That
when
I
we
do.
come back, he's going to tell you about buying your next house. We got a quick break here. 248-539-9797. We'll be back. All righty, welcome back to the show, 928. If you're just joining us, what a wonderful day. Every day is a wonderful day on this side of the grass, no doubt about that. We are giving you 1 hour here up till 10 o'clock, mortgages and real estate. Maureen Mitchell comes in from Parks Title to give us a little bit more on title insurance. We're going to definitely go back to that. And, of course, Darren Roberts with Jim Schaefer and Associates. Oh, the king of the Tri-County area. You guys are awesome. You're warm
Thank
and
you.
fuzzy and fun to work with. And even one of my other agents found out you were coming on, and we won't say Nick's last name, but Nick even said, wow, I just closed a deal with Darren. He was absolutely awesome. Folks, that's what it's all about, is having these winning relationships. And again, if you're thinking about listing your house, I always say, why not meet 2 or 3 different agents, find out the different personalities that are out now. After 31 years, I can tell you about way different things that used to go on in real estate and mortgages and sometimes people, Becky, get referred to somebody and they don't have their best interest and it wasn't the right person. So even if there was a good experience with someone else, I'm okay with you reaching out and maybe finding one or two other interviews, find out if they can help you.
I mean, honestly, sometimes I encourage it because as people, we're always curious, right? And we're taught, now we're taught like overshop yourself to death, right? Don't do that, okay? But if you want to talk to one other person, two other people, fine. And the reason why I don't mind that is because the conversation that you're going to have with someone like myself, like with Darren, Maureen, Harvey, you're going to hear the difference. You're going to see the difference. You're going to feel the difference. So I don't care because I'd rather you just get it out of the way so I know we don't have to do that later on because I'm going to have your best interest at heart. So as soon as I actually have a conversation with someone on the phone, it's very rare that we don't see that through. And there's also a lot of times where we're the second call. Someone started kicking down the can down the road and it turned out to be where it wasn't supposed to be, and the agents identify that. So we get involved. And even though we're not the first call, we're the last call because they're not going to go anywhere because we know how to get it done. We identify the problems before they're a problem, and everyone has that confidence in us to get it done. And that's why it matters who's on the other end of that transaction. And I know Darren can attest to this when he's, their listings, right? Who is on that pre-approval matters. And I know, and I want you to kind of touch on that. And then on top of that, agents used to be very combative. And we're in this stage in the season in our industry where it's really that collaboration over competition because the ones who are going to get it done are the ones just because they found out you're coming on the show, you're getting praise from people in the industry. And that speaks of everything that I'm trying to say about you is when your peers that don't even work in the same company are reaching out and saying positive things about you, that speaks to you and your character and the standard and the caliber of people that we associate with because people identify that. And sometimes getting the deal done is who's going to reach across the aisle, shake the hand, kiss the baby, but do it with such class that it's irrefutable of who you're going to work with.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate those words too. I'll be honest with you. The real estate industry is all about relationship, So on the list side, I simply, if I'm speaking more at that listing appointment, I'm doing it wrong. I need to hear their why. I need to hear their motivation. I need to hear what their again, motivation really to sell. On the buy side, one of my favorite things to do is I have my buyers pick the first 2 times that we're going out and I surprise them with the third outing. I pick the houses. And it just shows that I'm truly listening to what my buyers are looking for, for a home. And so I personally, think building the relationship is important. Real estate's always going to be there, but you got to work on that relationship. Outside of my clients, working with Maureen and with you, Becky, we've built this really good relationship, and I do feel that that's why we're so successful. And I really do appreciate working with good people, great clients, my team, and just having a lot of fun with it.
I love that you said that. I mean, and it's something that I actually, talk about quite a bit. We are experienced professionals creating experiences.
Yep.
And what you described that where you okay, I'm going to surprise you now because, sometimes people don't know what they don't know, but if you can get in tune with what they want after that first trip out, you're like, okay, I have the perfect house. And sometimes, you have that lack of vision, but that's why you're there is to help them see things that maybe they can't see for themselves, but also identify the problem. Because like I said, anyone can open the door and be like, oh, look at this, right? And you're not doing that. You're like, this is a beautiful home. However, let's see what's under the skirt. What's going on, what's under the hood, right?
We talk about how mortgages and real estate and, of course, values of real estate and the amount of competition out there. It's really regional. And, again, what areas you're looking at. But one thing we've definitely noticed across the United States is a little bit of the buyer pool for the luxury homes. So a little bit nicer homes. Again, the conforming loan limit, $726,200. So let's just go over that. So homes, let's say, $750 and above. That buyer pool did slow down a little bit. Now, maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, but definitely I want to, if you could comment on that a little bit, Darren, just a little bit tighter on getting those $1 million homes sold.
Yeah, again, when you're in that 750 plus range, the buyer pool drops drastically. Our average price point around this, the Tri-City area here, or county area, you're looking at $275,000. That's a lot of your first time home buyers. But to get back to, that 750 plus is, you have to be strategic, right? You have to seek the buyer. You can't just throw that house on the market and expect it to sell, because that buyer pool is a lot smaller.
Yep, and then you're also setting that expectations for the seller, right? Because people think that the last 2 years is still what it is, but when you're in that higher price point, you have to understand that house might sit for 30 days, maybe even a little bit longer, and that is okay because that is what a normal market is sitting for 30 days. You know, we got very spoiled where homes are going on for a day or even an hour or even coming soon, and you already have these multiple offers. And, you know, when you're looking for the luxury home, that's a very specific buyer, and not everyone is in that price point.
Right.
And you're talking about first-time home buyers. Even then, the fact that the first-time home buyer price point is already at the $200,000 because people are buying homes later in life. My first house, I think I paid $144,000, and I was 24 at the time, right? So, you know, there's people from all over scales of life, but whether it's a $100 million house or a $100,000 house, you're going to get that same service all the time, always.
Yes.
We see buyers coming out. Hopefully, they're not all scared away of the rising rates.
They're coming out.
Painful inflation, stock market volatility. I'm just hitting you with all the bad stuff here.
All the bad.
Ukraine, the Pistons not playing really well basketball. I mean, we can go on and on.
No,
Yes.
let's not go on and
let's
on
talk
about the doom and gloom.
But let's talk about the good things here. Regionally in Southeast Michigan, definitely home value is not going to be 20% appreciation, but Darren, no doubt, 5% appreciation looks like it's very comfortable moving forward into this coming spring.
Especially right now, Harvey. I'll be honest with you. You know, inventory is so low, and we have buyers who are pre-approved. You know, I need to get those listings going now because you're starting to see those bidding wars again. You're starting to see those escalation clauses or, you know, appraisal gap guarantees again because inventory is so low. People are like, oh, I want to wait for spring. No, now is the time. You know, now is when you want to get that house on the market. And buyers, this is the time you want to purchase it's the calm before the storm.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And because but what's weird is this market isn't just one thing too. Like you are starting to see the over asking because again, technically on paper, this is a seller's market, but I have a lot of buyers that are getting offers accepted with concessions. So you are seeing the over asking, but you're also seeing at asking with concessions. And a concession is when you're asking the seller to pay some of your closing costs. And in a situation like that, when people they have to move, well, then you can actually take advantage of that. But it's also a situation where buyers and sellers are both winning at the same time. And you know, our first-time home buyers, before you sign that new lease, have a conversation with a lender, whether it's here at Capital Mortgage Funding or anywhere. Just have the conversation, because if you're paying $2,500 in rent or $1,600 in rent, you'd be very surprised what kind of home you can afford for that price point, and you're now getting into something that you can afford, and it's yourself. And there's first-time home buyers, there's grant programs, there's all these different things that you can do to help capitalize the money that is out there for you, and you don't know what you don't know. And it's our job to look at your situation, assess it, let's get you set up on a budget and get you into a home versus rent, because we're still very affordable in Michigan. We're one of the few metropolitan areas where our price points aren't through the roof, but you know, with investors, I know you can talk on this. I mean, we have some outsiders coming in that are starting to gobble up our real estate.
Absolutely. You know, people that have that cash flow are taking a little bit of advantage of it right now. And then those rental rates are just astronomically high. I mean, you guys, everyone, education is free. I think it's very important to get educated for free, because it could save you a lot of money down the road.
All right. I pay Arizona State $30,000 in tuition, so I don't know how it's free for everyone. No, college tuition might not be, but definitely home ownership education is for sure free. Well said, Darren Roberts. Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, of course, that's who we're owned by. We that's our higher authority, Becky. We're a top 10 lender in the United States. We offer every type of mortgage. Don't go to Mortgage Hut if you don't have to. Again, if you want that personalized service, but a lender that's known across the United States, we know every guideline, we offer every program, I think we'd be a good one-stop shop. Again, call us at Capital Mortgage, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker.
So, like, what's cool about us, and again, we're different, right? We are a national lender. So we are able to lend in all 50 states, but we're very boutique, right? So we are national, but we're very hyper-focused on what is going on in our market. You can talk to me. You can sit across from me. But if you're also buying a house in California, I can help facilitate that, because my mantra is I go where you grow. And the point is that when my people and Darren's people are now moving on to Boston, California, Colorado, that we have a team in place that we can always go and help facilitate them, because that is a rarity for, you know, we're not transactional. We're here to be a part of your family. If you want to know who to, you know, plow your snow, we got you. You want a lawn cutting service? We got you too, right? You want to call your people because there's a lot of people that really don't have your best interest in heart.
All right, Maureen, let's get into some sticky stuff here. We said we'd bring in a little bit more information on title insurance. This stuff keeps appearing up. Again, sellers have these costs. If you sell a house in Michigan, you're going to be paying a title insurance policy. Most likely you should be. And more importantly, a couple other things. You got the title insurance. You've got your transfer tax, again, if it's not between family members. So there are some fees that a seller would typically pay, maybe a closing fee to originate the transaction. So let's get into that a little bit because that wire fraud is something that sort of popped up over the last 3 and 4 years. And just a couple things that the title insurance company does and things that we can help not lose our money.
I think it's just super important to start talking early. Your sellers, if they're out of state and they want to wire, we've got to make some accommodations.
There you go.
We've got to work on it. We've got to talk about this early in the process. Don't wait till the very last minute and you're signing with a notary in California and asking somebody in Michigan to wire. I'm not in front of you. I can't verify that information. So I'm going to have to find a way to do so.
Usually hiring another satellite office in another state or another part of this, country.
There's lots of technology available to us these days. So it's finding some technology that can help us. With buyers, we educate our agents because it's a very collaborative effort, right? So we're educating our agents early to start talking to their buyers about where they bank.
Yeah.
Don't want to get to the closing table and find out they can only wire $25,000 on any given day.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Do they have an
Huge
online
problem.
bank only? Do they have a brick and mortar bank?
Yes. U.S. Bank, I don't want to name names, but some of them are
online
out of state,
only.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They have to drive maybe to Chicago to get a wire initiated.
Some of them required, right? Some of the institutions
person.
out there required that you show up in person, right? And
Yes.
if you weren't able to do that, you didn't make those
Yes.
extra calls at a time. Boom. Bad
It's
news.
just super
A
important.
delay.
Talk from the very beginning. Ask your buyers, where do they bank?
Yes, and that's also a key that the lender is having the conversation because we need to know where your funds are coming from for the home so we can tell you where they have to go for closing. These are all things that you cannot have a conversation soon enough about.
All right. Is inflation coming down? Well, I hope so. Take some pressure off this mortgage rate thing and maybe bring some of these buyers back into the marketplace. But nonetheless, interest rates are still very, very good. And when we come back, we'll talk about buyers and sellers and a whole lot more. 248-539-9797. We'll be back. I'll spare everyone. I won't sing it all on this one. You know, I'm too deep of a voice anyway.
South Detroit.
That part we know. You are listening to the Hardcore Mortgage and Real Estate Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding, powered by Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. Give us a call, 248-539-9797. Got the great here. I only forgot your name, Darren Roberts. Don't worry about it. And
Jeez,
Maureen
Harvey.
Mitchell from Parks
Loser.
Title. Hey, we'll take your call. So we got about another 15 minutes or so of the show. It's really exciting, and we're going to dive back into buyers and sellers a little bit because that is the nuts and bolts of what we do. And I sort of joked off the air a little bit. Yes, we always behind the scenes in lending. Oh, that's no problem. Because we already took the initiative, Becky. We got that borrower approved, not just a pre-approval because we said that sounds good. And we ran their credit. We ran it through underwriting. We take it to the underwriter. That way you guys can close in 25 or 30 days. And more importantly, Darren, all of this has to do with the borrower's confidence. And that's what it's all about. Sellers and buyers go to sleep at night. If I got my house sold, I want it to close on such and such date. It's all about this knowledge and confidence and communication.
Absolutely. You know, we were talking about it a little bit earlier off air. You know, when I have a listing, I personally am calling that lender, you know, for the borrower, right? And I want to ensure that I'm accepting an offer with a buyer that is not just pre-qualified, but verified, pre-approved. You know, their assets are being checked, their credit's being checked, you know, because oftentimes we'll run into that situation where we get 2 weeks before the closing and they do not qualify for the loan. And it becomes an issue. So protecting my sellers that way. On the flip side, right? You know, I got a pre-approved buyer, verified pre-approved buyer. I am calling my lenders and I am saying, you know, hey, Becky, will you please give this list agent a call and just let them know that we are a solid buyer and that we can get this done in 30 or less days.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, communicating. All parties have to communicate. You know, and then letting your buyer or seller know that you have their back when it comes to these, you know, pre-approval letters.
Yeah, it's a communication again. Like if you're answering your phone, you're already winning at life, but let alone if you're dialing someone's phone. So I don't wait for the listing agent to call me. I'm calling them because I'm confident. And when my name's on that piece of paper, I'm very confident that we're going to close. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that we do our work up front. So there's some buyers that I have been trying to work on their pre-approval for 30 days. Why am I doing that behind the scenes? Because I know and I'm identifying there's going to be issues. So I'm actually already having that pre-underwrite and I'm figuring out how we can get things to work because I don't want someone falling in love with a house and me just being like, yes, 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 yes. And then reality, I know it's like a soft maybe. And if I can see those problems ahead of time, I'm identifying them. So that way when they are out, because the worst thing that I could ever do for my referral partners and my people that I'm working shoulder to shoulder with is give you a pre-approval. You're out there spending 3 months trying to find them a house and then you finally get under contract and I didn't do my due diligence for you. I'm doing a disservice to myself. I'm doing a disservice to them and I'm doing a disservice to you and everyone else involved with the transaction. So if it takes 3 days to get a pre-approval, sometimes it's worth it because I need to verify your documents. If someone is giving you a pre-approval in 5 minutes, you need to reanalyze the situation because there's especially if you didn't provide any documentation, because there's a lot of things that our buyers unintentionally are just not aware of that matter. Did you have a bankruptcy? Is there a student loan that's in collections that's going to affect whether you can go FHA or not? Are you a condo buyer? Is the condo FHA approved? We can get the condo approved. You know, it's called a spot approval, but I just got one done. I had one of those moments. I'm like, yeah,
They take
still
a few
got
weeks.
it.
They
do
take a
take a
couple
few
weeks,
weeks, but
though.
you have to get the condo approved before you can do anything.
Right.
And what does that entail? That means I'm going to both sides and say, look, I can do this, but we can't even order the appraisal for at least 20 days. Is everyone engaged and ready to let me do the work behind the scenes? And as long as you set those proper expectations, no one is going to be let down.
Maureen, this is sort of interesting, too. I like where Becky went with it. I wrote it down last night. You got to get involved with your homeowners associations. Again, if you don't have one, great. Okay, good luck to you guys there. Your home values hopefully are looking really good. Hopefully your neighbors are bringing in their trash cans, putting money aside to repair their roads or their sidewalks, or there's some normal things going on in the neighborhood where it's just not craziness with paint colors and things like that. So these associations do some
But
cool
I love
things.
fuchsia.
Fuchsia's great. I never had a fuchsia door. With all that being said, though, so go to these meetings. Again, if you're a seller, if you're thinking about selling your house, one of the things that has come up here in Southeast Michigan is the roads. So we've got some older subdivisions. I know a lot of the cities have jumped in and said, look, we're going to repair the roads. I think Farmington Hills did. They said, heck, we're doing the roads. We're going to assess you on your property taxes. We're going to stretch it out over 10 to 20 years. If you're a buyer now, you're assuming that. But by knowing what's going on with the roads, it's very important. Knowing what's going on in your subdivision, condominiums for sure, go to that association meeting. Now, if you don't want to go once a month, go annually or go quarterly and find out what's going on and be involved in that, because those are some really serious conversations that are going on at those places.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, associations are they're a blessing and a curse at the same
Yeah,
time.
right.
I like that. It's true.
It all depends on who it's being managed by or whatever the case may be. But you know, even still outside of like road repairs, you've got a city that does sidewalk repairs.
Right.
You know what I mean? So those are all things that we're looking for, we're searching, we're paying close attention to.
Yeah, they pop up all the time, and a lot of times they're, most of those have situations where they can go ahead and sent over to the buyer side, so the next buyer can go ahead and basically inherit the whatever it is. Again, I can't come up with the installments.
But it's okay.
On the assessment.
Yeah,
the installments on the assessment.
You're assuming the new assessments,
Yes.
and the reason why that's important is I actually had a deal we're supposed to be closing, and the condo association knew that this new assessment was coming out. What they were doing is they were repairing all their roads, and it was going to be an extra $800 a month to this association. And the buyer wasn't going to be able to afford that, but the condo was delaying getting us the documentation because they knew this letter was going to hit everyone's mailbox the week before, because it was right week between Christmas and New Year's. And I bring that up because that affects affordability of a buyer if you're buying condos specifically because you have association dues. So this information all comes out, and our buyer was not going to be able to afford $800 a month in association. So the seller then said, okay, I will pay this $10,000 so you will still buy my house. But the buyer still opted out because we had real conversations, and the reality was this was going to affect the warrantability of the condo in the future should they want to sell because of how they mismanaged their funds. So these are all these little itty bitty gross little details that people like myself and Maureen do behind the scenes that we make sure we identify the problem so it's not a problem later, because the last thing you ever want is to have something that you could have identified in the beginning, and we do it as quickly as we can, but if you don't do it, it's a problem later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off that a little bit,
Yeah.
Becky, because as a realtor, one of the things that you can do and that most buyers when purchasing a condo don't realize that they can do is interview the association, right?
Yeah.
Get to know call them up. Say, hey, what's going on? What are the HOA dues? What does it cover? As a realtor, I do that. I call,
Yay.
I'm asking, are there going to be any special assessments? Is there going to be an increase this year in the HOA? Because this could affect me being able to write an offer on this condo.
I love that.
So
yeah.
you got to do it. You got to do the behind the scenes stuff because the biggest protection are your buyers.
All right, you said it right there. You're listing a house. It's a condominium. Those sellers get the budget ahead of time. Get all the information ahead of time. Have it part of your materials that you leave out at the closings.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the association. This is the up-and-coming things. If you didn't notice, a couple of the buildings here are getting brand new roofs. This is what it cost them. Yeah, having that information really makes it a strong buyer and seller. Everyone's happy. A win-win.
And what he just described is how you separate the players from the pretenders.
Yep.
All day long.
And a seller has the ability at the beginning when an assessment is, put on a property, they have the decision to either pay it in full or defer it. If they choose to defer it, it's still a seller cost. Mm-hmm. So then it's a buyer's decision to assume or not.
Yeah, you can't hide it. It's all going to come out
it's
at the
gonna
end of
come
the
out.
day, for
Are you-
sure.
Maureen, are you saying that most standard purchase agreements that are used in the state of Michigan basically say that the seller is responsible to pay for any of those items ahead of time? And they all do say that, but it's negotiable. Again, it's negotiable. You might build it into your purchase price, and that's probably come up, Darren. You see that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. There are sellers that will not assume the cost, right? Or, pay for it. So a buyer would have to assume, well, if it's a $10,000 ordeal, guess what? I might be asking for $10,000 off that asking price,
Yeah.
or whatever. There's options. And like you said, negotiable.
Yeah, and it's negotiable, but what and what we're talking about is when we are going to be pressing up into a heavy seller's market again, you as buyers, you have to make sure that you are not being desperate. You don't want to stand in line just because someone else is standing in line. You're not going to just go above asking because you want to win, right? At what cost?
Patience is a virtue.
Yay.
That's why we read our purchase agreements.
Yeah,
right?
people don't. They're like click, click, click. And that's the other thing too. Read your contracts, understand what you're signing, because there's a lot of people, DocuSign, you just click a couple buttons and then they're going back and reading it and it's an issue and people are not understanding. So make sure you're with people like Darren Roberts at Jim Schaefer Associates. Make sure you have people like Maureen from Parks Title that are in your back pocket that are going to identify things that you might have overlooked, but we will not. And can't be stressed enough. And I want to talk about something real quick. We talked about it before the break. I get a lot of calls about ladybird deeds. And a lot of people think, so a ladybird deed is attached to estates, right? And what happens when we're no longer on this earth a lot of the times. People think that title companies are the ones that should be preparing that. And I want you to kind of lean into that because I get a lot of questions about that. I know the answer, but I want our viewing audience, if you're thinking about estate planning, why title companies really don't get involved with ladybird deeds.
Because this is an estate planning tool.
Okay.
First point. Second point, it's a legal document. There is so much legality behind it. Title companies do not normally get into that because, like I say, we're not estate planners. We are title. So there's so much to be considered behind a life estate deed, behind a ladybird deed. You really need to seek the counsel of an attorney.
I like that. Trust in estate planning. All the attorneys now that I know are definitely going, yeah, Harvey, now you're getting into my topic. Yeah.
Yep.
Very important stuff that you want to get done ahead of time.
Yes, and that's where, and I actually took 2 calls this week about it. And you know, when we talked about it on the show, like I think it was at last year, it was a huge, it was a talking point because preparing for your future now and later, but getting yourself involved in real estate isn't just always title and real estate professionals. You also need attorneys sometimes. And so if you are looking at planning your estate for when you are no longer on this earth and for your family and just securing yourself, you want to make sure that if you need help with real estate planning, estate planning, attorneys, we have the right people that know and will stay in their lanes.
Darren Roberts, last thoughts. I got you right. You
Give me a call. No.
Yeah. Check him out on social media. He's
Check me
always
out.
everywhere. He's got a lot of listings. The Jim Schaefer team, they're always down with the community, and you can definitely follow them on social. They do a good job.
Thank you, guys.
Outstanding. Thanks, Darren Roberts.
Maureen, my darling, anything
Thanks,
for
guys.
you?
No, just
All right.
happy to help.
Call
Listen,
Maureen at
top-notch
Parks
people right here.
Title.
Top-notch.
There you go. All right, we'll see you guys next Saturday for sure here on the Hardcore Mortgage Real Estate and Business Show. For the greatest real estate agents and advice, be sure to call Capital Mortgage Funding, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker. We got Pat Caputo coming up with sports. Keep it here.